How you doing? It's Dan. Hope you're well. It's raining outside and Storm Doris is on her way apparently, so we'll batten down the hatches for tomorrow. Anyhow, today I'm going to talk about food intolerances. Depending on where you sit, whether you've read around this topic, the medical fraternity tend to think it's a little bit hocus pocus, but in my experience and from my research over the many years, many people are walking around with food intolerances, and it can make you fat. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what they are and what you can do if you realise that you have got some food intolerances. So the first thing is the difference between food allergy and food intolerances. Now, a food allergy is where the immune system is really cheesed off with a certain environmental or internal thing you put in your mouth. It can be anything: food, drink, stuff you put on your skin, and normally the reaction is pretty severe and can be life-threatening, and that can be things like nut allergies. Things start to constrict and swell up, and pretty straight away what you're allergic to, because within seconds your body is not happy. Food intolerances, the difficulty can be quite mild to severe, but can be within a few hours or 3 or 4 days later. And it could be something like a headache, some bloatedness, some fatigue, some inflammation somewhere, an ache and pain, and you generally can't link it to what you've eaten. And that typically is normally because the transit time from food to take to go from one end very much varies. So I'm going to talk about how food intolerances occur, how they generate. And the first thing we need to understand is that we have membranes in our digestive tract, and they have little junctions. They're basically semi-permeable. So when we digest food, we're only allowing foods that are completely digested into our system, into our blood supply, which is allowing us body to deal with and provide us energy and vitamins and minerals and repair. Now, when we commonly eat processed foods, we drink booze, we have foods that contain a lot of additives and preservatives, we take medication. Basically that lining, that permeability tends to become more permeable, and what we call becomes leaky. Now then what happens is bigger food particles end up into the kind of blood system, the circulatory system, and our immune system jumps on it and behaves like an antigen and causes an inflammatory response. And that's the key. That's the thing that can cause inflammation in the body, and then the body deals with inflammation in various ways, normally releasing cortisol and other hormones to deal with inflammation. So that's the difference between food intolerances and allergies, and that's basically how most allergies occur. Food intolerances are generated. And it's the inflammation, and this is the key bit for the reason for talking about it today. The inflammation can then lead to insulin being released into the body up and above what is normally required, and that can cause insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance. And that what normally happens is people start to store body weight around the midsection. So if you know people or yourself, you can't get away from stubborn food around the midsection. It could be that the foods that you're commonly eating are causing inflammation in the body, and that's not a good thing. So let's talk about other things that food intolerances can cause. So food intolerances then can lead on, I've got it up here, but can then lead on to a lot of autoimmune issues. So when the immune system is hiked up and inflamed, then we can start further down the line over a long period of time, start to get things like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, all these arthritis, anything with an itis, because that normally signifies inflammation in the body. Other things can happen in terms of pain and injury, because the gut is on a similar note, the same nerve, the deep core muscles are on the same nerve supply as your gut. Any inflammation in the gut can downregulate the message that go to your deep core stabilizers, and then what happens then is we become unstable in the pelvis and the spine, and it can then lead to backache or injury, disc issues. So indirectly, the foods that you're eating on a daily basis could be causing a problem with back pain or knee pain. quite interesting. So how can we first of all, work out whether we've got food intolerances? Typically, it's quite hard to know, but if you really connect with your body, keep a food diary, you can know that certain foods, you might not just feel great with it, energy might drop, you might cause bloatedness, you might get a headache. These are all sort of signs and symptoms that your body's telling you that it's not a good idea that you're eating them. So what we can do, first thing we can do, doesn't cost any money, and normally food intolerances come from foods that you eat on a most regular basis, and most people stick to about 15-20 foods every day. They have the same breakfast, they have the same lunch, they have the same snack, and it's about rotating. So the first thing you could do is take away 1 or 2 of your favourite foods, I know, shame, out of your diet for 2 weeks and just see what happens. Do you feel better? Do your energy improve? Does your digestion improve? Do you have less aches and pains? Do you sleep better? And then if that happens, try another couple foods and then repeat that process. So it doesn't cost any money and it's quite a cheap way of doing it. Common foods that people are intolerant to and having the immune system doesn't like are eggs, dairy, gluten, most grains, soy, lots of, it doesn't really matter what it is, because if foods are getting into the system and you're eating it on a regular basis, the immune system will then become intolerant or sensitive to that food. So typically look at the foods that you eat a lot of, and that's normally an indicator of maybe the foods that you need to take out first. Rotation diets are a little bit trickier, and this is just, again, a freebie. But typically over periods of, we've evolved to eat seasonally, and we wouldn't always be able to eat the same foods because we would naturally rotate. But the immune system works by the more you expose yourself to something that's causing a problem, the more the inflammation or the response becomes. So we can desensitize by rotating the food. So if you know, for example, you're intolerant to almond butter or cashew butter or broccoli, and you had it on Monday, then you just make a note of that and you make sure you don't have it again until Thursday. And that way you're desensitizing the foods. And also it's a good way of not exposing yourself to the same foods, but you do need to be quite organized with that. It's quite tricky. I've done it in the past. So and there are lots of tests out there. There are blood tests, there are kinesiology tests, there are lots of different tests that test different parts of the immune system. So you could Google IgG, IgI, IgJ. I can't remember all of the names of them, but typically they're a little bit hit and miss. But they do give you an indication of where you're at and what flag up certain foods that are causing problems. Other ways, after you've found out what you're intolerant to and you remove it or you test it. That, by the way, it doesn't mean just because you're intolerant to it now that you'll never be able to eat it again. It just means you need to exclude it from the diet for a period of 8-12 weeks and then reintroduce it slowly. So once you've done that, to avoid intolerances and let your gut heal, because the gut will heal within a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, but if you keep exposing it to the same foods that are cheesing it off, it'll always be inflamed. So essentially, to improve your digestion, you want to chew your food more, because the bigger the food particles in the body and the less they're digested, the harder, more strain you have to put on your digestive system. And foods that are undigested are going to flag up your immune system. You could take some pancreatic enzymes, which help to break down foods. Bigger meals tend to be a problem, so maybe cut down the size of your meals, because if you're eating too big a meal, especially late at night, and especially as you get older, you lack the enzymes to actually break it down. So food is just sitting there causing problems. Alcohol is generally bad news for leaky gut or any immune issue. If you want the gut to heal in any way, then you need to really take out alcohol for a period of time, because alcohol creates leaky gut syndrome pretty badly. Even just a binge at the weekend can cause the immune system pretty horrific things. Especially the sugar and the yeast that's involved can lead to things like candida and parasites and those type of things. So bad news about alcohol, but if you want to get your gut better and feel better, then it might be a good idea for a period of time. Never suppress the urge to do a poop, because again, if food digest toxins are supposed to get rid of, you're supposed to evacuate all the things you don't need. And if you're a bit backed up and you're stressed out at work and you're not thinking about, and you're suppressing the urge to go to the toilet, that can back up into the liver and cause a toxic environment. So there you have it, some tips on food intolerances. If you need any help with it, I'm here to help if you want a helping hand. Please like and share if you know anybody that might be benefit from this kind of stuff. I really appreciate it. And have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you soon. Take care.